What's up, guys? I'm going to talk to you about allowing an urge, one of the most important skills that you're going to need to learn how to do as you're uh, addressing your problem with pornography. So, there are three reasons that you over desire porn. Three that we're going to focus on for a minute here. Number one, you have a conditioned desire for porn, an over desire for pornography, right? Pornography is a false pleasure. That means it's a man-made, concentrated substance, basically, or activity that gives you that concentrated hit of dopamine in your brain, that pleasure, and so it actually tricks your brain into thinking that because there's so much dopamine, it is so important to your survival, and it feels like life or death, right? So you have this conditioned, learned over desire for porn. The second reason that you have this desire for porn is buffering, okay? You're covering up emotional stuff that you don't want to deal with, don't know how to deal with, that doesn't feel good, and so you're trying to get away from it. Um, your brain is designed to avoid pain, so it's actually another part where it's just kind of gone wrong. The third reason is um, cognitive dissonance. Okay, cognitive dissonance is basically when your prefrontal cortex and your lower brain, in this case, are disagreeing with each other. Your lower brain says, "Give me the porn." Your upper brain says, "No, this isn't good for my long-term best interest. Let's stop this." Right? I don't really want this. And that's stressful when you have those two conflicting parts of your brain kind of going at each other. And so to relieve that stress, we turn to porn, right? And it's the same with the buffering. To get away from those negative emotions, you turn to porn, right? So allowing an urge is going to help you reduce your conditioned over desire for porn. And it's going to give you an opportunity to work on that emotional stuff that you've been avoiding and really get to know yourself and work through it in an empowering, effective way. And then it's also going to reduce that cognitive dissonance over time because your lower brain is going to be pushing less hard for the porn. So then there's not going to be as much of a battle there between your prefrontal cortex and your lower brain when it comes to whether you want to have porn in your life or not. Okay, so how to allow an urge without giving in is what we're talking about. Here's what happens. You have an urge. This is a feeling in your body, and typically it feels urgent, right? Like you need to answer it right away. And then we don't like the feeling of that urge when we're not rewarding it, okay? It's uncomfortable. So typically what we do is resist, react, or avoid the urge, okay? Doing these things just perpetuates that urge until you reward it. It adds more uncomfortable feelings on top of the urge, right? Because you're resisting or avoiding. And then you often feel powerless or helpless. You end up white knuckling a lot of times, which is part of resisting, and your willpower runs out eventually, right? You only have a certain amount of energy in your brain that can be put towards that willpower. So it does run out after a certain amount of time of resisting the urge and just fighting it. Don't feel bad for doing it this way. It's what you've been taught. It's how you've learned it. But I'm going to offer you another way. So an example with this conditioned desire is Pavlov's dogs. a lot of you probably know this study that was done by a guy named Pavlov, guy or girl, I don't really know, scientist named Pavlov. And the dogs, what they noticed is they would ring a bell and then they would feed these dogs, okay? And they did this over and over until the dogs their mouths would start drooling, start watering just by hearing the bell, right? Even without that food coming. So they'd start drooling just from hearing the bell because their brains have learned when that bell rings, it means food is coming and let's get ready to digest it and start getting the saliva flowing, right? So we're ready to chew it. And an interesting part of this study is on the flip side, what they did is they started to ring the bell without bringing food. And they did this over and over until the dogs stopped salivating when they heard the bell. Okay, so the dogs unlearned that conditioned response. And really interesting is they unlearned it much faster than they learned it. Okay, so in terms of pornography, how encouraging is that, right? You can unlearn this conditioned over desire for pornography much faster than you learned to have it. Okay, but that's what's going on. Okay, the pornography is kind of like the bell. Well, pornography's the reward that gives you that dopamine hit, but you have this conditioned response with certain triggers or whatever it is, and when you have that urge, it's like, okay, this is going to happen, and I want it to happen, and I want that reward, and so it's conditioned, and it gets strong. Okay, it gets really strong. But when you unlearn it, then it's less strong, and you're not going to be desiring porn as much, and you're not going to obsess about it as much. So here's how to allow the urge without rewarding it. Okay, so first of all, basically you're giving that feeling of the urge permission to be there. Okay, permission to be with you in that moment. It's happening in your brain, in your body, and you're allowing it. You're saying, okay, you can be here. That's okay. Bring it on, right? And then important thing is you don't make it mean there's something wrong with you, right? A lot of us, even if we have the urge to look at pornography, we start thinking, oh, I shouldn't want this. Like, I know this is bad for me. It's against my beliefs in church. It's against trying to be, for LDS people, we want to be worthy to go to the temple. We want to have our temple marriage and be worthy of the priesthood that we hold, right? So we have an urge and we start thinking, oh my gosh, I am terrible for even wanting this. Satan has such a hold on me. There must be something just wrong with me or evil about me, right? A lot of this is what we do, but this doesn't help, right? So when you have this urge, I want you to start practicing thinking like, this is my brain wanting something that it has been trained and learned how to want. Okay? Just keep it as simple as that. My brain is actually doing what it's designed to do, and it's doing it really well. It actually is a sign that you have a working, functioning brain, right? So try to think about it in that way. And then what you want to do with this urge is become the observer, okay? Where you are almost watching it happen, okay? Try to have that mindset as you go into it.